If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniak. I live in northern Maine, and there's a lot of scary stuff that happens up there. About 150 years ago, there was a serial killer who was a Canadian man by the name of Jim Collins. He was lynched by a mob of people, and they hated him so much, everybody stuck pins in his body after he was hung. They then went on to bury him in the swamp, which is a 40-minute walk from my home. So, I was 12 years old when I went hiking out in the forest with my brother. We eventually came across this extremely old shack. Never seen it before, and we always played down in the forest. And not knowing the stories, and being quite innocent, we simply go inside. The building was probably 9 foot by 9 foot. Inside, there's a lot of old axes that were just rusting. Everything's covered in moss, but there were dead dogs and cats all over the place, clearly murdered and dissected. Kind of getting sick again thinking about it. Anyway, all of a sudden, we hear knocking from underneath us, and we hear what sounded like run. Being young, we panic and freak out, running as fast as our legs would let us go back home. Got back to our home and told our parents what we found. Now it truly bothered my dad, so he contacted the police to figure out what was going on in there. When the police showed up shortly after, they caught a bunch of satanic people performing a ritual. Apparently, it was a place where the satanic group, being mostly 20 and 30-year-olds, went to sacrifice animals because they feel the evil energy the man had who died there. What's crazy is I found out as I got older, the last person Jim Collins ever murdered, he killed with an axe only after he yelled at the guy across the street while slapping him on the floor. Apparently, there were police officers too, with the sheriff and deputy. The deputy was the one who got away, running through the exact same forest. Apparently, the group who was performing the rituals only got there less than 10 minutes after we left. Definitely the most terrifying incident of my life. General staff would rotate the camp for the first 6 weeks, until they found a team you worked really well with. One of those teams was the sanitation and maintenance team, cleaning the bunks, mess around halls and bathrooms, as well as doing any handyman repair work. That was the name of the game. Now story 1. This takes place in the camp, deep in the woods. The sanitation/maintenance team also happened to be in charge of the lockers. That's a confiscation locker that doesn't have an entry log, so we're constantly partying on the campers' weed and booze. One night after a camp loaded out, we're starting the rounds, the deep clean, going room to room and mucking out trash, picking up food, fixing clogged drains. Now we're nearing the last couple of cabins when we realise something was moving around inside the cabin we're about to enter. We go around the corner, peeking through a window, and saw that the window on the opposite wall had been left open, and a young bear had ripped through the screen, happily making a meal out of leftover potatoes, trail mix, and other assorted junk. So we noped out of there, radioed the rangers from our truck, moved on to the next cabin. So the next day saw the start of repairing the bear damage project to the cabin. A bunk bed was rebuilt, new window screen, new doorknob for the interior, lots of stuff like that. A lot goes wrong when a bear is locked in a room for a few hours trying to get out. Now the second story happened months later, after I'd been assigned to program staff. This meant I was part of the team who ran camp activities, everything from the boathouse to the rope courses to the off-road jeep tours. I loved it. One day, during a week hiatus for campers, some of us program staff decided to take the jeeps out. Now we went through the east part of the camp, explored Kings Canyon, working our way back to the ridge, and we're making our way back to the camp when a call comes in on the radio. The rangers are in the process of trying to capture and relocate a mountain lion that was a bit too curious about the camp for our liking, and enjoyed drinking from the lake off dock. Apparently, they're up on the ridge, conveniently near the road we needed to get back to camp. So we move on. We get to the last bend, and come around to see a scene that would be one straight out of a movie. Apparently one of the rangers got too close. The cat got spooked and aggressive, and right in front of us, one of the rangers had to put a bullet into the poor creature. Our whole convoy was just froze. What did we just see? We're shocked. None of us knew what to do, so one by one, as one of the park rangers waved, we said goodbye. When I was around 12 years old, I spent the afternoon at a friend's house who I knew from school. He lived in a neighbourhood that I was not at all familiar with, so when we decided to take our bikes out for a ride, I simply followed him until we came to a large wooded area. It was in a valley that descended away from the roadside, and from what I could see, become rather dense and overgrown, because all the foliage we decided to go through when we left our bikes. We had been hiking for about 30 minutes when we realised that we could no longer see the spot that we left our bikes at, surrounded on all sides by thick vegetation. We thought it was fantastic, continuing deep into the valley. At some point, we came across what looked like an abandoned campsite. There's old cans lying around, looking like they're being used to boil water, an old ashtray pit, a lot of plastic sheeting. We had a look around, but didn't really find anything interesting carrying on. Now just as we're leaving, somebody called out to us from somewhere on the other side of the camp, a homeless man appears, no doubt the camp dweller, and demanded to know what we're doing with his stuff. We explained that we did not take anything and are just looking around as he calms down. We made polite conversation for a few minutes, exchanged names, and a vague idea of where we'd come from. At this point, we didn't feel like we were in danger and the homeless guy was actually friendly. We decided to get through and said our goodbyes, but he told us that we have to give him something. We have not brought any food or water with us, so didn't have anything for him, and he took exception of this. He then starts yelling at us, demanding our shoes, which neither of us are going to part with. We started to back away from him at the same time and figure out which way he had come from, when all of a sudden he pulls out a knife, lunging towards us. I don't remember exactly which way he went or how far he had us run, but I'm full of adrenaline. I look back a couple of times, realizing that we're getting away, but he's not letting up. There's also no tree cover at this point. We reached the side of the road where we left our bikes. Unfortunately had enough of a lead on him so we could hop on and pedal. We saw a couple of builders who are offloading materials up the road. Seeing we're panicked, stopping us to find out what's going on. We give a brief description of events, and they went back to see if he was still there, but apparently there was no sign of him. Cast your minds back to a time when you're 18, out of A levels, and looking forward to dealing with life. Like so many of my peers, I got it into my head that I wanted to go abroad and do development work. I found an organisation via a newspaper advert, signed up at the recruitment weekend in Hull, and then, straight after my last exam, jetted off to Denmark to train, to do what I wanted for 6 months. The basic idea was that I would train in Denmark, then head out to Africa to do stuff like building toilets, educating people, etc. Well, the first mistake happened when I arrived. That is, they forgot when I was meant to be there, so I sat in the bloody airport for 3 hours before thinking, screw it, and I then got a taxi to where I was staying, making sure I charged it to the company. Anyway, about a month in, we were all about to clear up some school. Myself and a friend went working on the library, and I happened upon a book with a very interesting title. The History of North Korea. I read it, had a laugh at was essentially some very weak propaganda from our friends in Asia, and then I threw it out, thinking nothing of it. Another interesting occurrence was when the school decided to have a sing-along session. Fine and dandy, but we decided not to go out because we had our own plans of work to do, mainly lounging around and doing nothing. One of the teachers basically busted in, orders us out. Now she seemed very put off by me staying there. I don't think she was equipped to deal with an English teenager who wasn't in the mood to put up with crap. The final straw came when I found a website called TV in Alert and noticed several odd things about this supposed charity I signed up with. First of all, there had recently been a police raid at their headquarters. Secondly, there are allegations of money laundering, tax evasion, false accounting, brainwashing, and gun running. Not forgetting wage slavery. So, not liking what I was reading, I emailed the link to my dad, who's a journalist at the time. He emailed back saying, "It's real, get out of there." Anyway, I started to email the creator of the website in order to formulate an escape plan. The only problem was, what was meant to be a private email was posted on the website, which was monitored by the lovely people I was working with. Here's where the story gets interesting. We were just about to go onward, outbound for the weekend, when I was pulled off the bus regarding the email that I had sent. I was put in an office on my own with a large, angry Danish man. He couldn't understand why I was not afraid of him. Could have been something to do with the knife that I had on me. So after an hour of him sort of trying to intimidate me, looking stupid, he tells me leave. Here's the fun part. I get in contact with my mum over MSN, and she actually phoned up this guy threatening him with coming over to go and make his life very difficult. Now, I got on the plane the same day, and I contacted the media about this. As a postscript to this, the leader of the cult is now on trial. The place I stayed is closed. The whole organization went under. My parents were part of a fake cult. Now there was a man that used to lead group chants and things, and one time while everyone's eyes were closed, chanting away in the darkness, me and him lock eyes, and he realized that I was laughing at how dumb it was. Since then, he had a vendetta against me. He turned my parents against me first, convincing them that one day in the future, I'ma break their hearts, destroying the family, because they were so invested in him, they stopped believing him, treating me that way. After this, he made my parents focus on my older brother more than me, lavishing him with expensive gifts like Gucci watches, a brand new Jeep with a private plate. This is before he even passes his driving test. And experiences like executive box seats at major sports events and whatnot. This wasn't enough. After this, he convinced all of his followers that I was mentally handicapped, needing to be kept in isolation. For most of my teenage years, I would come back from school, college, university to an empty home. Many times, not seeing another soul for weeks. The story of my parents' retarded child spread through the entire community, where it's now accepted as fact. I can't get married because everyone assumes I'm disabled. After this, he bankrupted my parents and family, making them pay all of his bills and expenses, rewarding them with prayers. Through a too complicated to go into detail chain of events, I was given the responsibility to become a full-time parent to my 2-year-old cousin. So he convinced everyone that I was doing weird things with her, and I could not be left alone with her. He convinces my parents that I was their enemy. His sons were their real sons, and to ignore my existence. Now to this day in my life, I have never once been able to have a heart-to-heart talk with either of my parents. I've been working for 6 years now. They don't even know the name of my boss or team or what I even do. Their only interest is on what day I get paid. There has been more done to me than this short amount, but I just replied because I wanted to say that I'm a better man than anyone's ever understood. I forgive my parents now because that guy has been dragged to hell, finally. I forgive them not because they deserve it, but because I believe the experience made me a stronger person. If all this could not break me, what can? The most disturbing thing about this cult was firstly that there are a million holy men like this all over the world. The second most disturbing thing is how easy it is for them to gather followers who believe them that they have divine intervention. Though nothing is more cheap and disgusting in this world. If anyone reading this is going through similar events, I will say that your family is ill. If they were of a sound mind, they would not be doing them things. Be kind, be good, be better than them. When I was 15-ish, my best friend and I essentially broke into a bunch of abandoned houses and stole stuff. However, it was okay because he said it as urban scavenging or something like that. Totally not stealing. Anyway, during this time, we found 2 houses that were unsettling, to say the least. The first house. This one was right down the road from where my best friend, we'll call him Tay, lived. So we knew it had been empty for at least a year. Grass and weeds grown up from inside. The back door led into the living area, which was fully furnished. Okay, so weird, but whatever. We keep on going. Full furniture sets. The entire house is fully furnished. Washer, dryer, with all of the detergent stain removal stuff everywhere. A full china cabinet, A table with plates of rotten food on it. Pots on the stove. Food still in them. We didn't open the fridge. I'm getting sufficiently creeped out by now. It's really cool. And Tay, he's already taken in his mental inventory of what he wants to take. And we continue. The house is laid out. Back door, living area, utility room, kitchen, hallway. The hallway has 2 doors on the right, one on the left, one straight ahead. That's the entire home, so we decide to explore the rooms. All the doors are closed, so with our hearts pounding, expecting a demon or boogeyman to jump out as soon as we open the door, we try the first one to our right. The doorknob will turn, but the door won't open, so we move past it to the second door on the right. It's a master bedroom, fully furnished. The bed sheets are pulled up on the floor besides the bed. It's pretty messy, but everything looks like it's still there. We end up getting something like $15 in change off the dresser, which was besides the keys for work out the back. But Tay definitely was, and wants to check under the mattress for valuables. He lifts the mattress and is shining his flashlight under when he calls for me. "What is it?" I said. So I walk over to investigate with him. On the underside of the mattress is a fairly large brown stain. I, of course, am not trying to scare myself in the dark. It's a scary home, so I make up some crap about a woman having a baby on it. I don't know. There's nothing else good in that room, so we move on to the end of the hallway. It's a kid's room, a toddler by the size of the bed. This bed did not have any sheets and was fairly empty. It's just a bed frame and mattress, but there were still clothes hanging in the closet. The ceiling was hanging down halfway into the room, so we didn't actually explore it. I could not tell the gender of the child, so we move on to the next room, the one that was on our left initially. It's a bathroom. It has the curtains, towels, toiletries on the counter. Besides the sink is a #1 dad charm. Just a pendant, not the chain. Turns out it's 24 karat gold. Now I'm just realizing that we haven't even pulled the shower curtain back. We do nothing there. It's boring. Now, we have the room that we didn't go to the first time, but it won't open. We eventually come back to the door. Tay says screw it, ramming his shoulder into it until it opens. We noticed immediately how much darker this room is, more dark than all the others, and we shine our lights around. We realize it's because the window is boarded up. That's the only room in the house that has a boarded window. Whatever though. Maybe this window got broke. So we take a look around and see some boxes looking like clothes and random stuff just tossed around on the floor. There's a super nice mirror. It's solid wood, painstakingly carved and etched. hella heavy, just laying on the floor. Trey grabs it to take with us and we turn to leave. That's when I noticed why the door wouldn't open immediately, even though it wasn't locked. There's 4 nails which have been hammered in at an angle. Weird, right? So we leave, and eventually Tay goes back. He goes to get his goodies, and that's when it hits me. The door was nailed shut from the inside. The window's been boarded up from the inside, but how? While retrieving stuff, he got some copper, vases, bottles made out of glass milk, and sold a lot of it, keeping some. He ended up keeping the mirror, hanging it in his bedroom until he took it down due to weird stuff happening. So it's hung up in his bedroom. Flash forward a few days later, he's having nightmares, not feeling well, terrified. Just has a feeling of dread constantly. I would go over to his home and would feel uneasy in his bedroom. That was my second home, and I've never felt uncomfortable there. I always played it off, but the atmosphere felt different. He starts waking up with scratches that weren't there when he fell asleep. Not elaborate, like claw marks and stuff. Really weird. Mostly on his neck and down his face once. He becomes frightened with the mirror, putting it in the closet, double checking that it's closed. The following morning, it's open. He pulls out the mirror, turns it to face me, and notices that his name has been carved into the back, with his birth year underneath. How you'd sign artwork. After that, he gets rid of it. The weird stuff stopped happening. I went to an abandoned hospital. There was a large square staircase spiraling up to the roof of the outside of the building. Locked steel door at the bottom. So the only way up was to climb outside onto the first landing. My body boosts me up. I climb over, and there's a sleeping bag with a steak knife next to it on the landing. I call down, we're definitely not alone here, dude." "No, it's cool," says a voice behind me, scaring the life out of me, causing me to jump and whirl around. There's these young, dirty, homeless looking guys standing there, coming down the stairs from above, hands up and palms out. "Didn't mean to scare you," one says, as he takes a seat on the stairs. So I carefully step on the handle with the knife, leaning over the edge to pull my friend up. We had planned to sit on the roof and drink beer, so we offer them some beers, which they accept. We're talking about the city, the cops, travelling, and life in general. Being in town for a week or so for just guy things. He then says, "You're human, right?" I hate it. I mean hate it when I meet people that end up being aliens. You never know until you peel their skin off. They've been after me for a long time, you know. They never stop. I think I should just kill everyone to be safe. He's definitely not joking. There's an uncomfortable silence as my friend and I realise this guy's crazy. Yeah man, we're human. Just wanted to check out the place and drink some beer. We're gonna go head away now and move on. Definitely don't want any trouble. He just stares in silence, so we leave him the last beer, carefully backing up to the railing, jumping down and walking away very quickly, constantly looking back over our shoulders the entire time. They're just standing there silent watching us. The place is still abandoned 5 years later, and we've never been back. I'm not a believer in supernatural, but God, I don't know what to think of this situation that happened. Not really creepy, I guess, but a mystery from my childhood that I still occasionally think about. There used to be a home that was abandoned, 2 houses down from my friends. Nobody really knew much about the people who lived there. They never went outside, never mowed their lawn, never had a car that anyone saw. I don't know how he found out they left, but one day my friend asked, "Do you want to go inside? Because they've moved, and the side garage door is left open." Saying they moved would be an overstatement. Just up and left is more appropriate. Inside the garage, the floor's covered in clothes and children's toys. We walk in the home, enter through the kitchen. There's still dinner out. A half-eaten sandwich on one plate. Salad on another. An empty plate with crumbs on it, with a gallon of tea sitting on the counter. Doesn't sound bad. The fridge and freezer are still full and gathering bugs. The living room is empty besides an air mattress. The upstairs has 3 empty rooms, aside from clothes on the ground, with a baby crib in one of them. There was a basement too, but we were 10, scared out of our mind to go down there, and never did. The house was well known over the years, and no one ever locked the side garage door. It was vandalized. We would occasionally go in there when bored, until I was no longer friends with that guy. But as 4 years passed, that nasty sandwich, now just a glob, still sits there. I still wonder who those people were who lived there, and what caused them to completely abandon their lives in the middle of dinner one night. When I was 14, my family went on a camping trip. The group consisted of my parents, grandparents, and 12-year-old sister, and my 7-year-old cousin. My cousin was getting pretty bored of campfires, as a kid does, so we decided to walk to a park a couple of streets over. We were parked in a campground, as opposed to out in the woods. So this park was accessible and in the sight of the majority of campers. It was a good 5 minutes walk from our site through, far enough from the forest that our parents wouldn't be able to hear or really see anything that was happening. We sat on the swings for 5 to 10 minutes, before a girl around my age walks over. I saw her coming because her tent was directly across from the park. She sat on the swing besides me and started talking, asking me where we camped, how long we'll be here for, what music I liked, etc. She kept her head down the whole time, making eye contact probably 3 times, seeming distracted and possibly sad. So I smiled, tried to make friends. Unfortunately, that wasn't her plan. About 10 minutes into our conversation, she said goodbye, heading back to her tent. Not 10 minutes had passed before a man in his mid-20s stepped out after her and proceeded to walk towards me with a huge grin on his face. He must have been her brother. Now, my first reaction was to assume he's mentally handicapped. Why would an older man be smiling at me this way? I give him a smile, trying to look away, but he was barreling down the street towards me, refusing to break eye contact. When he reaches me, he said hey, saying how old I am, and that I looked about 15, what my name was, etc. I responded politely as a naive teenager would, and my sister and cousin stared at him. They were obviously freaked out, but didn't know what to do. He then said, do I like Justin Bieber? Even though I wanted to support our fellow Chanka artist, I said no. He said, do I like One Direction? I said they're okay. He then said, do I want tickets? At this point, me and my sister and cousin, although so young, knew something bad was about to happen. They took off sprinting towards our trailer, and I started standing up, getting ready to leave. I said no. I didn't want tickets. I felt squeamish, as though I had a feeling what he asked wasn't for money. Now, the thing that made it even worse was I was 14 but appeared to be 11. It's obvious I haven't got any cash on me, and there was no way in hell he wanted me to go ask my parents for some. He persisted, listening to all kinds of artists. I began walking away at this point and told him no, I was not interested. I got scared that he was going to follow me, but thankfully he didn't, and I was able to walk home at a normal pace. When I got there, my cousin was crying while my sister was trying to explain what was going on. I tried to calm them down and told everyone what had happened. Again, as a naive child, I started pushing down my feelings of danger, forcing myself to believe he is only selling tickets. I hate the fact that he's still out there somewhere. When I was 18, I was going through some problems and very depressed and lonely. It felt like I had literally no way to meet new friends or anything, and I was a loss in life. I used to walk through the forest to try and clear my head sometimes, and there's one experience that happened to me when I did so that I'm never gonna forget. It was foggy this day, and I was walking through smoking. I thought it was funny because I couldn't really see the smoke through the fog. It was that thick. This was during the winter months, I should mention. As I was walking, I saw a yellow glow of light in front of me. I was very confused by this. Now at the same time I could hear children laughing. I thought this was odd, because it seemed to be coming from all around me. I said, "Hey, are you with your parent?" I heard laughing, then saw this yellow glow that I could now see was a raincoat running off into the distance. I might have been worried, but that didn't mean I didn't care, so I sprinted off after her, saying, "Hey, you've got to stop, this is dangerous." It was very hard to walk through the forest because of just how bad the fog was, and the fact that I couldn't really see what was in front of me too well. She seemed to just disappear in the fog at one point and fall down. I sprinted over, and what I found was the most scary thing of my life. There was no girl, just an old raincoat that had appeared to be there for at least 30 years, absolutely tattered and covered. I looked around everywhere, then realised this was no normal girl. I don't know if I walked into some kind of memory from a spirit or what, but it'll still haunt me to this day. And yes, I did call the authorities, and there was a large manhunt, and no one was ever found. What's more creepy, there were no cars in the car park other than my own, so it had to only be me there.